Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. And I'm really excited for this video because we're going to be deconstructing and breaking down a very real and very live example of this process working. We're going to show you podcast closing live. And I've actually got some notes over here on the right of the screen. So if you see me looking over to the right, I'm just referring to my notes because I don't want to take you through the full 38 minutes of the interview. But if you want to, it's a great one to check out. You can literally just type this into Google, Finding Your Mentor to Achieve Millions with Shark Tank's Kevin Harrington. You can watch the whole interview. What I want to do is I want to take you through some highlighted points. And the reason I'm showing this interview is that I want to show you Brett, who's one of our students, actually closing a deal with Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank. And I want to show you guys how he does this inside of this process. Now, bear in mind, a lot of these techniques, a lot of these strategies that we're showing Brett, this is exactly what we're going to talk to you about on the sales call. It's what we're going to show you inside of our program. But it works like gangbusters. And this is a really cool interview to show you because, one, it's public. You guys can go and watch this process. It's not usually possible for you to go and watch somebody's sales call to see how they close a deal. But you can literally watch this live to really understand, how simple this is and how effective it is. But I also want to show you some of the cues, some of the things that Brett has been able to perfect with his podcast to be able to be highly successful at this. Brett has a 95% success rate, meaning that out of all the interviews that he's done, 95% of them have actually got on a sales call with him, and he closes a large portion of those deals. He actually has over $100,000 a year in recurring income for 20 years with these deals he's done. I know his living situation. He literally said, if he wanted to, he could retire right now for the next 20 years and still having income coming in every single month, which is crazy. So without any further ado, let's jump into this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the interview shot by shot. I'm going to skip over a lot of Kevin's answers to what Brett asks him. And I just want to show you some of the questions that Brett asks and how he kind of sets up this interview for success. So let's start off. We're going to start off at the 1 minute mark. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this. I'm going to play it back to you guys. I'm going to give you a chance to hear what Brett says, and I'm going to kind of explain why he does this. So first of all, this is the intro about him introducing Kevin Harrington.
Welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the deferred sales trust, is the best way for you to grow your wealth. Hey, I'm your host, Brett Swartz. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best real estate minds.
So first of all, he's telling people right on the get-go who this is for and what he does. Now, bear in mind, this isn't just for the people who are listening at home. This is for the person he's interviewing as well. He's saying right from the get-go, hey, Capital Gains Tax Solutions is one of the best ways to defer any of your taxes. And bear in mind, the other person he's interviewing is aware of this right now. So what Brett is trying to do is he's trying to close Kevin Harrington into becoming one of his clients through this interview process. So let's keep listening to see the next thing.
Financial minds and passive income wealth advisors in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration. So together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. Hey, I'm really excited.
So here he says, here's who I'm going to speak to. And what he says is he talks about what they're going to talk about on the show. So he's leading Kevin Harrington into a discussion that suits Brett. He wants to talk about deferred tax, and he wants Kevin Harrington to talk about that as well. More on why in a second.
Excited about our next guest. He has launched over 20 businesses that have grown to over $100 million in sales.
We're going to skip this part because he just is reading the scripted introduction that he was given about Kevin Harrington. But when he gets to 2 minutes 40, I really like this part. So listen to this.
Into your current focus right now.
Oops. Okay. Let me go back slightly.
Would you give our listeners who don't quite know you yet, just a little bit about your background, and then also dive into your current focus right now?
So right up front, he says, okay, tell me about your background, but tell me about your current focus right now. This is a very purposeful question because what Brett's doing is two things. By learning about his background, Brett wants to build more of a relationship, learn more about Kevin's background specifically, see if there's any points there that they can share value. But he asks, what are you focused on right now? Really important because Brett is interested in knowing about what Kevin's currently working on, because Kevin, whatever he's working on right now, that gives Brett an opportunity to see how he can help him. And in his answer here, he talks about a lot of different stuff for about 8 minutes about money, about numbers, a little bit about capital gains tax as well. Brett's next question, it comes in 8 minute 40. And this is a really cool one because he drops a hint here. So see if you catch this.
Environment with the economy and real estate, and then also we'll touch on some capital gains tax deferral strategies as well.
So right there, what he's talking about, and I'm going to play it for you guys once more so you can catch it.
Of that full picture there, and you painted that so well.
So he's saying, hey, thank you so much. You painted a really great picture.
Before we dive into some of those, tactical things and some of the things that maybe perhaps you're seeing in this new environment with the economy and real estate, and then also we'll touch on some capital gains tax deferral strategies as well.
See that, what he did? And also we'll touch on some capital gains tax referral strategies as well. Brett throws into the conversation, hey, we're going to talk about some capital gains tax referral strategies as well. That's what Brett sells. So he's throwing in there that, look, I'm going to ask you questions about this. Let's listen to this next bit.
I'm curious, though. I believe, Kevin, we've all been given certain gifts in this life. I believe they're God-given gifts, and they're given to us to make a difference and to bless other people. So I want you to go back. Perhaps it was the days when you're with your dad working, for the $1 an hour, and you're just getting started. What was that gift, that one or two gift that you believe you can maybe identify at that period of time, and how does that connect how you bless and help people today?
So really powerful here. What Brett's showing Kevin is, look, I've researched you. I know about your story. Maybe you can tell some stories about your dad with the $1 an hour restaurant, and what he's looking to do is build connection and build a bond here with the person he's interviewing. The more trust he can build up with the person he's interviewing, the easier the close is going to be. So now we're going to go into 12 minutes 40. And what Brett's doing here is Brett is going to give him an opportunity to talk about the thing that makes Kevin look really cool.
I absolutely love it, and it encapsulates who you are and your calling. And so let's dive right into the book right now. So for those who are listening, maybe give us what are the top steps? Because you already help ultra successful people become successful, right? And so walk us through what the kind of the essence of the book, and what are the top steps that folks could be taking, either if they're starting out or a lot of our listeners are already very successful. What's that next legacy player? Walk us through kind of what the book's about and what you're hoping to people would grab out of it.
So super important here is he's giving Kevin an opportunity here to promote what he's there to promote. One of the fastest ways to piss somebody off is to not give them the platform to talk about the thing that they want to do. That's the fastest way to not build trust, because that would make Kevin feel like what he was doing was a waste of time. So Brett gives him the floor. He says, hey, you're here to promote your book. Tell me what your book is about. And he gives Kevin that opportunity to talk about it. Now, when we go fast forward into 17 minutes here, Brett asks a follow-up question. What Brett is showing Kevin here is that he is listening.
They're going to be fruitful in getting you some great ideas for who can become a mentor for your business.
And I imagine too, Kevin, a lot of people, they're like, hey, Kevin, I want you to mentor me, right? And you're like, yeah, so does all of the other millions of people. That's why I'm writing this book, and this is why I do these, all of these things, because I don't have.
So super important here. Brett is trying to use, a little bit of humor, a little bit of, making kind of a joke of this, like, oh my God, people are going to be like, hey, come mentor me after you read this book. Like, he's trying to, again, build that little bit of rapport with Kevin here. And he's showing him he's listening by asking this follow-up question.
I don't have the time and the energy to mentor everybody, but curious, Kevin, for those that you actually have, I guess, more on an intimate level, or those who are part of your company or part of your other companies, maybe talk about one or two of those, the mentees that you mentored, and what how do they connect with Kevin? What was it, a natural thing? Was it a formal thing? Walk us through that process.
Okay, awesome. So again, just giving him more of the floor, giving him a good follow-up question, another opportunity to build up that connection. Now, this next part is where we start to see the shift happen. This is where the magic starts to happen. And this is where I want you guys to really pay attention, because this is where the shift starts to come, where Brett's going to start talking about finances. This is his wheelhouse.
Do, a little bit of finance or real estate or just values. I guess the first thought is just COVID-19. What opportunities do you see coming? How are you positioning yourself to help those who are hurting, right? And or, especially small businesses or those that are, been affected by this. But also on the financial side, perhaps opportunities to buy more. What's your take on just the overall state of economic forecast in the next, 6, 12, 24 months?
So the key thing that Brett asks here is, what opportunities do you see to buy more? Because what Brett is really interested in is buying more stocks relates to him having an opportunity to talk to Kevin Harrington about deferring the tax, because that's what Brett does. So what he's doing is he's leading him into a conversation here to talk about, hey, tell me about the deals you've done. Tell me about what you're telling people to do. Tell me about all the stuff that you're buying. And this leads very neatly to the next question, which is the game changer. And this is at 27 minutes. And I really want you guys to listen to this kind of whole segment because I think it's really brilliant. And he transitionally says, okay, let's talk about this instead.
These things, that's what you got to get yourself involved with right now is direct, is e-commerce and how to utilize that in your business.
And with that, I was on the Sharkpreneur podcast, which you co-host with Seth Green, and that's exactly what Seth Green specializes in, right?
Yeah.
Taking a brand and going direct to consumer, as well as exploding their marketing, right? And
so again, he's showing that he knows who Kevin is, he knows what he's involved with, he knows what his business partner does, just building more rapport. The shift's coming in just a second. Let's see if you guys spot it.
Looking at all these exponential ways to grow. So it's not just it's what you do, and it's the team that you also have around you to do that. So make sure to reach out to them too, Sharkpreneur, Seth Green, and Kevin Harrington on that. That being said, let's talk quick.
Here it is.
Quickly about a tax deferral strategy. Just curious on. I know you're not a CPA, and you have some of the best that you hire and the attorneys, right? But you mentioned that stock, and I couldn't help but pass that up. Now you bought a stock at 22 cents, right? And it's $20. That's insane.
So Kevin is taking the thing that he talked about right at the beginning. As soon as Kevin Harrington at the beginning of this interview mentioned that he bought a stock at 22 cents and it went to $20, it's a 100x increase. He will have scribbled that down on his piece of paper and said, I am going to bring this up later. And what he says is, that being said, he changes the conversation. He said, let's talk about tax referral strategies. I know you're not a CPA, but you mentioned that stock and I couldn't help pass it up. It's 22 cents and now it's $20. This next bit is genius. And he's talking about his results. See this bit.
Insane, right? We're doing a Tesla stock sale right now where somebody bought Tesla like 200 grand and it's worth $1 million. But when they go to sell it, they're hit with this huge capital gains tax. So,
talking about a client that he works with that they're helping, mentions that they bought stock at 200,000. It's now worth $1 million. And he says, but the problem is there's a big capital gains tax, right? So he's presenting the problem here to Kevin Harrington. So whatever your business, your product is, this is where you would say, but here's the problem that most people have, right? And then let's hear this next bit he talks about.
Would you walk us through either the frustration or the challenge when it comes to selling, buying something low or seeing something explode, and then, that 30 to 50% in tax?
Really powerful. He says, hey, walk us through your frustration or your challenge when you buy something super low and sell it high and you see that 30 to 50% in tax. He's asking Kevin, hey, tell me about where you're frustrated with your current process. And this is going to segue into when Brett is going to talk to him about his product. And then here's the next bit he says.
How do you approach that? What tax deferral strategies have you looked at or done? Walk us through just your philosophy on that and diversification, if that makes sense. That's a big question, but hopefully that makes sense.
I mean, I'm a firm believer of an amazing dream team.
Okay, so this next bit, I'm going to get you to listen to what Kevin Harrington actually says as the answer. Because what you see here is Brett shifting from being the interviewer into the expert. And this is really, really important to watch because Brett asks him a question that he knows Kevin isn't going to be completely comfortable with answering because it's outside of his wheelhouse, right? This is not something that Kevin is an expert in. And you'll see in a second, Kevin actually ends this segment by asking Brett to share his experience. And it's because he's put them in this position to talk about something that he isn't 100% comfortable in. So let's see Kevin's answer here.
Team. And so I'm involved with dozens of companies And the one thing that I promised all my financial guys is I'm not going to meddle too much in these arenas. So normally, if I were answering questions about this, I would probably have one of my tax guys here because, yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say I pay a lot of taxes. I mean, it's crazy. The one thing that I try to do when it comes to capital gains is if there's, it all depends on the classifications. And so if it's a straight, I bought the stock and I'm selling the stock at a higher price, sometimes you just got to pay the tax. But there are ways that if you take the tax and if you take the stock in a different form, sometimes you can have better outcomes on the tax side. So I know that there's consulting stock. There's other ways that you can position yourself inside some of these relationships, and some of them are hardcore. If you got the stock this way, you're just going to be paying the tax. But we like to take a look at the most creative structures possible, and so I'm going to tell you that I use some really powerful guys to try to save as much money in taxes as I can, but I'll tell you, I pay way too much probably. So maybe, let's talk about it. Let's talk about structures and ideas. Maybe you can shed some light on it for me too.
Okay, so here's the really cool thing here. You notice that Kevin Harrington here, he's kind of stumbling over his words. He's like, he's like hesitant. He's not sure, and it's because this isn't something that he's got a strength in. It's not his wheelhouse. And you notice here, Brett picks up on the fact that Kevin says, we want to look at creative structures as much as possible. I hire these crazy guys. I probably pay too much in taxes. Kevin's giving him an in here. He's saying like, hey, look, like if you think I'm like maybe paying too much, like please tell me, like, because I'm always looking for the best solutions. And he says, hey, let's talk about some structures and ideas. Maybe you can shed some light on it for me. This is where Kevin is looking to Brett as the expert. Brett's now going to talk about the solution. And it's because Brett talked about the problem and Kevin isn't 100% confident. So he asked Brett to share his advice on the podcast. And this completely shifts the table. This is what turns Brett into the expert. And this is where Kevin Harrington is now listening intently to what Brett says. And Brett has been preparing the entire podcast for this shift. So he shifts from asking questions to actually answering them. So let's see this next bit when Brett answers this. What does he say?
Yeah, and that's actually why we started our company, Capital Gains Tax Solutions, right? Because of the 2008 crash.
And this is where this right now, Brett is now giving the pitch, and this is what pulls Kevin Harrington in.
A lot of my clients, when I was at Marcus & Millichap selling highly appreciated, multifamily properties in Northern California, they had felt trapped and pressured and had overpaid via the 1031 exchange. That's the only thing they knew, right? And they thought that was the only tool they could use to defer tax. And then everything stopped. And that was in the 05-06 market. And then 08 hit. And then some of them lost everything. Some of them lost half. And then we found out about a thing called a deferred sales trust, which goes back 25 years now, thousands of code.
Here we go. So now he's talking about his unique solution, the deferred sales trust. And he says it goes back 25 years. They've done thousands of sales. This is where he's now talking about his new opportunity. And this is what he's trying to get Kevin hooked on.
It's been through the IRS, but it's proprietary and it's protected. And so we launched our company on that, basically that premise that there is a better way. It's an alternative way, and it can actually work for not only real estate, but it works for primary homes, works for business sales, works for stock, and it's had an amazing track record. But even the smartest folks either have heard about.
So he mentions here, okay, look, this works with all of these different things. It works for real estate. It works for stock. It works for all of these different things. So what he's saying to Kevin is, look, I work with a lot of real estate guys, but look, this will work for you. And the next part I think is genius because Brett is actually sharing here about why maybe they haven't heard about it, right? Like why has somebody in his team not heard about this before? And the reason Brett brings this up is this is the number one objection that is going to be going on in Kevin Harrington's mind. As Brett is saying this, he is thinking, well, Brett, if this was so good, why has my team not already told me about it? Because I'm paying, hundreds of thousands of, even millions of dollars to these guys. Why would they not tell me about it? So Brett overcomes that objection before Kevin even says it out loud because he knows that's what he's thinking. So listen back to this again.
It works for primary homes, works for business sales, works for stock, and it's had an amazing track record. But even the smartest folks either have heard about it or don't quite know about it because they think they know, but they don't. So talk to us a little bit about the idea of bringing in new innovative ideas and what's the process in which you do due diligence on that. Because the biggest thing we get, Kevin, is, well, that must be too good to be true. My guys would have already known about it, right? I have the best of the best, right? And then they go, wait, well, they don't. And then they end up joining us once they figure out how we do what we do, and we sign the NDAs and everything. So, but walk us through just your due diligence and how you vet different, and it could be tax strategies, it could be a financial model. What is it about making sure that you go with the winners and say no to the ones that are maybe risky or too dangerous?
Okay, so there is a ton that Brett just did there, and I hope you guys picked up on all of that, and we're going to break those down step by step. So the first thing he says is he gets over that problem that Kevin might have in his mind. He overcomes that objection. And guys, this is exactly like you would do it in a sales call, right? Brett talking about the problem, it's a bit like on a sales call. You get somebody that comes onto the sales call and you say to them, hey, so I know you've got this problem. What are you doing to overcome this problem already? Like, tell me, what is your plan? And then they're going to give you some, plan that they're trying to do. And most of the time that plan is going to suck and they're going to, waffle their way through it. And you say, okay, well, that's an okay plan, but here's a better one. That's exactly what Brett just did with this. He asked Kevin about what he's doing about deferred trust. Kevin gave him an answer, which wasn't great. He asked him back, okay, what do you suggest? And now he's running with it. And the couple of cool things that Brett's doing here is that he's pre-selling the idea of Kevin becoming a client, as well as overcoming any objections. So I'm going to break this down step by step.
Everything stopped when I was in the 05-06 market, and then 08 hit. And so we launched our company on basically that premise that there is a better way. It's an alternative way, and it can actually work for not only real estate, but it works for primary homes, works for business sales, works for stock. And it's had an amazing track record, but even these...
Okay, so first thing, talks about the product, talks about the track record, and he talks about the new opportunity.
Smartest folks either have heard about it or don't quite know about it because they think they know, but they don't. So
here he's saying, hey, here's the reason why even the smartest folks, the people that you're probably hiring, might have heard about this, but they don't really understand the full complexity of it. They don't really get the whole picture. This is where he's overcoming that objection that's in Kevin's mind.
So talk to us a little bit about the idea of bringing in new innovative ideas and what's the...
Now what Brett's doing is he's pre-selling Kevin Harrington on the idea of bringing in new innovative ideas. He's saying, hey, talk to me about what's the process that you go through to bring in new people to help you with this stuff. He's pre-selling Kevin on the fact that he's going to bring him in to work with him.
What's the process in which you do due diligence on that?
And his next question is, hey, what's the process that you go through to do due diligence? What's the process you go through to decide whether you work with somebody or not? This is information that Brett is gaining so he understands how to pitch his product. Because if Kevin tells him, hey, this is how we do due diligence, this is how we decide who people work with us, then Brett is going to go and approach Kevin in the way that he's just been told how to, right? He's understanding. He's asking the question, hey, how do I pitch you so that you say yes?
Because the biggest thing we get, Kevin, is, well...
And again, now he's pre-overcoming that objection. He's saying, hey, Kevin, like, instead of saying, you might be thinking this, he's saying, hey, the biggest objection that we get is...
That must be too good to be true. My guys would have already known about it, right? I have the best of the best, right? And then they go, wait, well, they don't. And then they end up joining us once they...
And he says, okay, so... my people, they think, okay, we've got the best of the best, but they don't have the solution. And then they end up joining us. So what he's saying here is genius. He's saying, hey, when your guys realize they don't have this solution, you end up joining us, right? He's pre-framing him becoming a customer right now.
Once they figure out how we do what we do, and
once they figure out how we do what we do, they become clients. And he also mentions about signing NDAs, so Kevin Harrington feels, more comfortable about sharing this as well.
The NDAs and everything. So, but walk us through just your due diligence and how you vet different, and it could be tax strategies, it could be a financial model. What is it about making sure that you go with the winners and say no to the ones that are maybe risky or too dangerous?
And one of the things you'll notice here is Kevin Harrington is jumping at the bit to try and get back into the conversation, because what Brett just did in that monologue that we just broke down was he created a hook. He got Kevin Harrington curious. He gave him just enough to get him excited. And the goal Brett now has is, hey, Kevin, I want you to take this bait and I want you to ask me more about what I do. And this is the essence of Pull Podcast Closing. This is exactly what we teach, is he's turning the table. He's getting his prospect curious so that Kevin Harrington now says, tell me about what you do. And obviously the question here is a little bit more focused on, okay, how do you have due diligence, right? So when we go to 3240, this is actually what Kevin Harrington says back to him. And this is brilliant.
I've played with real estate over the years, but I'm not, I haven't done billions of dollars in real estate, but I have done billions of dollars in product sales. So I am a product marketing guy, but I also, let's talk about public companies and stock. So because you mentioned, you started off saying that the capital gains work for real estate. How do you do that when you buy stock and the stock is at this price, and then 2 years later, the stock is triple the price and you want to sell it? Are you telling me that you have a way to defer the tax situation there? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, absolutely.
Boom, got him. That is the moment right there that Kevin is in. He now wants to get on a sales call. He's interested. And what I want you guys to do is I want you to rewind that and rewatch that, because what Kevin says is, okay, so you started off talking about real estate, but then you talked about stocks. So, you mentioned this is going to work for me. Like, are you telling me that I'm going to be able to do this? This is the result that I'm going to be able to get. That's the point he gets him as a client. Now, this is where Brett now explains how it works, but he got this to this point because he hooked him in with the last question. Kevin Harrington has now asked him about how this works, and that is where the shift happens. So let's just play this as Brett explains so I can give you the full context.
Absolutely, yes. And so the first one I was referring to is a 1031 exchange, which only applies to investment real estate. The second one I'm referring to is called a deferred sales trust. It works for primary homes. It works for investment.
So this is where he's explaining the difference. So, hey, the first thing I talked to you about was 1031. That's real estate. But the second thing, this new thing, is a deferred sales trust. This is the vehicle for you, Kevin. This is what he's talking about.
Real estate, it works for highly appreciated public stock. It works for private stock. It works for collectibles, artwork. It works for Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. And it's literally, I think, the best kept secret. And not only that is it's new to people, but it has a track record of thousands of closes now, right?
So what he's saying here is, look, it's a new opportunity. It works in all of these different spaces. You can see Brett smiling because he knows he's got him at this point. But, he's saying, look, it's new, but also it has a track record. It's been working for 25 years, but it's new to most people. It's why you probably haven't heard about it.
25 years, 15 times no change IRS audits. The biggest deal was a $125 million deal.
And again, he's giving live examples here. He's saying, look, it's had track records. It's had IRS audits. It's been, approved. It's got through. The biggest deal was for $125 million. He's showing, hey, look, there's proof that this works and it's something that you can trust.
One of the recent stock sales, I think, was for Netflix, and it was an over $5 million sale.
There you go. Another example. One of the recent sales that we did through the Deferred Sales Trust was a Netflix stock sale. It's for over $5 million. Again, giving more examples of the results.
And they were able to defer the tax. It's really simple, actually, Kevin. It's actually just
and here's where he explains it. Hey, it's actually really simple. Here's the simple step-by-step framework of how it works. As you guys as marketers will know, we all have the simple 2 or the 3-step process of how it works. This is where Brett is now explaining it to Kevin, and you're going to start here Kevin Harrington getting so excited, wanting to jump in, wanting to talk to Brett. But Brett makes sure that because Kevin has asked him the question, he gives him the full pitch on how this works.
Just the seller carryback. What you do is you sell the stock to the trust before you ultimately sell it to the ultimate buyer. And what you do is, Kevin, is you carry a paper. You become the lender. And so you say, hey, look, I'm going to finance the trust 100% of what the stock was due. Let's say it's a $5 million sale. And immediately you get the $5 million buyer to buy it. And that's kind of the simplified version of this. But because we do this, we do it in a certain way, you haven't received what's called constructive or actual receipt. And so you're in a tax deferral state. So yes, it absolutely works for public stock, private stock. It is a proprietary structure, but this is like, we believe it's the best kept secret.
So you notice that Brett went a little bit technobabbly, catches himself going a little bit too technical into the CPA talk, and then he brings it back to the result. Okay, it's this, it's that, it's proprietary, it's going to help you, and he brings it back to explaining about the result that Kevin's going to get.
Secret out, and it really will change a lot of people's lives, because we're looking at the largest wealth transfer in the history of the planet going on right now, and it's with the baby boomers, and it's 17 to 20 trillion dollars it's going to pass with every single day. 10,000 baby boomers turning 65, and there's 77 million in the U.S. alone. And they're looking for ways out of the toilet trash liability, out of the highly appreciated stock they've had. Could you imagine someone buying Apple 25 years ago?
So again, now he's emphasizing the pain that people have gone through and how this fixes the solution.
And basically, they're kind of nervous to sell because they're going, I don't want to pay all this tax. I don't want to give all this wealth away to a government that'll probably waste it away pretty quick. But now we can put it to the trust. Now, once it's there and it's deferred, you can actually use the funds to invest into brand new real estate deals or brand new business deals. We call it the go fund yourself. Instead of having to get venture capital, it's kind of like a self-directed IRA. So there's a number of things that go through it. But yeah, the answer is absolutely it works, and we'd love to show you in your tax scheme how it works.
Okay, so he's like, yes, it absolutely works. We'd love to show you and your team how it works. He's inviting Kevin to take the next step.
So let's do this. I'm out of time myself. I got to run, but let's wrap up our podcast here and
yes. Where can they find you, Kevin? Yeah, where can they find you, folks?
More about how you do it. I mean, I'll say this: if you have something that can defer taxes in the sale of stock, like you just mentioned, I want to introduce you to my top people. Maybe you can become what I call a dream team member of what we do, because we're buying and selling stocks, quite a bit on a weekly basis. And so, and we obviously, know when to hold them, know when to fold them. So that's our goal. But I'd like to follow up with you on that, and hopefully anybody that's out there that is interested in my new book, KevinMentor.com is where they can find out about it. It comes out.
Okay, awesome. So that's it. He says, yeah, awesome. I'm interested. Let's get on to the next step. Let's get you onto the call. And then after that, they go on and they have a conversation. They have a sales conversation. And that is how you close a Shark from Shark Tank using Pull Podcast Closing. So guys, if this makes sense, this is a long video, but I broke it down step by step so you guys can understand the different things that are at play. Just understand, you don't have to go as complicated as this. The reason I wanted to break this down step by step is that for Brett, this is very natural now. After doing this process, over and over again, after doing over 100 podcast interviews, he didn't methodically decide, okay, I'm going to do it this way. This is just a natural way that he's done it over time. And you can just add in a few of these pieces, a few of these elements, adding in these curiosity hooks that will get your customer coming in. And just like analyzing a truly great salesperson on a sales call, you're not going to have to be exactly like Brett to start having success with this. But I wanted to break down and show you an example of what this is, how it works, give you a live example of closing somebody from Shark Tank and getting them interested coming onto that sales call. And again, just to show you guys how this process works, how simple it is, and how you can literally get somebody who's done billions of dollars in sales to go from not knowing you to trusting you and wanting to get on a sales call and understanding how you can help them in their business. So hope this is valuable. If you want to learn more about the podcast closing process, watch the video down below. We're going to break it down in more detail, but this hopefully should give you some context ahead of the call to really help you understand how amazing this process is. Brett's now gone on to launch his second podcast because this is working so effectively to him. And literally, he said the growth he had in the last year, 75% of it was attributed to this podcast process, which is an absolute game changer. And like I said, he's literally got, 20 years of at least $100,000 in recurring revenue coming in because of this process through the podcast. So check out the next video. Hope this is valuable. Catch you on the next one.